Hey, this is Class Creatives, and we're back with yet another special video edition. We'll discuss how industry veteran Tav Shande creates 3D environments single-handedly using his AAA game dev experience to become one of the top sellers on Epic Games' Fab Store. This video collaboration with Tav will dive into professional techniques and some of his secrets for how he creates massive 3D architectural environment assets for Unreal Engine. We'll have more technical videos with Tav to provide further insights into his workflows, so please leave a comment and let us know what you would like to see from both of us in terms of creating 3D environments for Unreal Engine and his experience with the Fab Store. Tav has over 2 decades of experience working on AAA game franchises such as EA's Dead Space, Activision's Call of Duty franchise, Crytek's Crysis series, and more. He also live streams on Epic Games' indie channel and has done presentations for Meta. He also created a massively popular plugin for UE5 where you can grow realistic ivy directly in the editor. We'll dive into Tav's creative process of creating hyper-realistic environment assets for Unreal Engine and how he is able to create massive worlds that rival AAA game studios typically all by himself. He'll show us some of the best practices to consider and what tools and software he is using in his workflow to create these AAA game production quality assets.
And I hired a guy to work on the ferry building originally. And when he came back with the first model so I could review it, he said he finished the modeling. And when I opened it up, I saw that he left all these Corinthian capitals. They just weren't there. He didn't make them. And I was laughing because I was like, oh man, I don't really like making them that much either. So when I asked him about him, he said, oh, well, I wasn't sure how to get it in budget. It worked out perfectly. So I'm kind of glad he didn't make them because I got to try this out and it worked really well. And I'll be using this moving forward because it's a lot faster than it would take me at least probably half a day to a day to actually do the high poly for. It's just funny that the one thing that I was hoping that, oh man, maybe he'll tackle this. He didn't tackle it either. So, but it'll work out in the end. So today we're going to be working on some really cool Corinthian capitals. These usually are found on the top of columns. This is Roman architecture, but I've never really enjoyed actually making these. Even as long as I've been in the game industry or working in 3D, I've always thought they were really cool to look at. But as tasked with making a building that has a bunch of these, I've always been like, wow, that takes a while to make like a high-res version and then bring it down to a game-ready, geometry size and then do the transfer in substance. So I found a really cool tool called Hitem3D. I'll show you that webpage really quick here. And it's a image to 3D generator, and it's really efficient and really speeds up the whole workflow that would take usually around half a day or even more if you're going really ornate to give you a column capital like this in an instant. So I really wanted to make this part of my workflow because it speeds things up so much. And I can actually show you why I was making this column capital here. It was for this building I was working on. It was for this pack I'm making for Fab for the Unreal Engine marketplace. It's the ferry building in San Francisco, and it has a series of these, capitals up here. And this is the low res game version of that high res model you saw. And so this building uses a couple of different methods. Most of it's a lot of trim texturing, and you can see I have the normal map here, so I'm lining up the edges so I can have a bevel, and the column capitals are a skin, which will go through the process of that right now, and then I'll show you how I go from the image to the 3D version, high-res 3D version, and then take it through a couple programs and then bring it back into Maya, reduce it, and make a game asset out of it and bring it into Unreal after texturing it in Substance Painter. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned and you can watch me go through the whole process. Okay, so let's close Maya for now. And we'll close this and we'll go to the website Hitem3D. And so this is really cool because now they have a version 1.5. I used an early version, so I'm really interested in seeing what it'll do with the same model because I heard, or the same image because I heard it's improved. So I really want to check that out. You can go image to 3D. You can even have multiple views here, it says. So if you have like a back of an image, front of an image of your model, you can put that in and it should generate things. But let me go to my folder here, and I have some images in here I really, am interested in. Like, I'm a big fan of Akira, it's classic anime stuff. So I kind of want to see this, this Akira's bike, in there. And so, but here's the image we're going to use. This is just an image. I also actually made another image of using AI program to make an AI generated model here. So I'll probably put that in there and see what effect that has. But first of all, I'm going to use kind of the same image I used for the first one and see, because I kind of want to compare the differences and see how version 1 and version 1.5 are. So let's kind of go to this and we're going to drag in our image. And let it think for a while. Oh, there you go. And so this is the first time I'm actually using this model. So I'll hit generate. I think I have some credits up here. I'm using a pro version. And you can actually choose texture, but I want to create my own texture and substance. So from the high res, so I'll leave that off and hit generate, and we'll see what it does. All right, it's done. Hey, look at that. Wow, that looks cool. So this version 1.5, I'm noticing, is a lot more kind of detailed when it comes to the edges than the first version I used, which was like version 1, I think. And I mean, I'm seeing like it's the edges are just way more defined, and it overall just looks like a much cleaner algorithm they're using to find the edges. And the first version I made had like this hollow tube through the center, and this kind of caps the bottom and the top, which is great because that was all just useless geometry that I was gonna have to close myself anyway. So this did that for me. So this is great. I'm liking this better than version 1 already. It's done, and I'm going to bring this into Maya. I'm going to use the OBJ because I might take it into another program to change the topology depending on what the topology looks like. I might be able to use it as is, which would be, the best case scenario. I just can't really see what the wireframe looks like right now. So let's go into Maya here, and I'm going to bring it into the same file that I have the old version or original version in. This is the original version, or version 1.0, I should say. I made like a few months ago. And we'll just hide that, and we'll bring in the OBJ that we just exported. Oh, there it is. And I'm not sure what scale this is going to be at, and that's kind of what you have to also watch out for, is the scale sometimes is kind of off, but this isn't bad. Let's see. So that's kind of what the mesh it looks like. That's why usually I try to take it into a different program and make it all quads. But I think I can actually just use this if I don't have to do a cleanup. And let's see. Let's actually kind of scale this to around the same size as the original one. Yeah, so let's see, this is the original one here. I'm not gonna, I'll just say like, that works. And let's hide this bad boy. And I do want to say this, we'll say this is a, call this a Corinthian cap high. And let's make a low res by duplicating this high version. Make that a low res. Let's hide everything else. Or let me make sure I freeze my transforms here. Hide that. Hide everything else. Okay. Now, I kind of want this to be around, let's say, 10,000 triangles. Right now, it's something wild. And that is okay if you're going to use it, nanite. But for this small section of a building, like, piece, I don't really want to use all my polygons for this. And you can get something that looks just like it, that's like 10,000 triangles or so. And I try to aim at that 10,000 triangles because like around 7,000 you can run that on a switch light, and it won't kind of try to auto decimate the LOD, and you can have a good frame rate on that. So let's go to on this low version, we're going to try to remesh it, or we're going to try to, let's try reducing it first and seeing if we could get the target count to something good. That we might have to remesh. Say the triangle limit will be 10,000 triangles. Oh, see, and so like that's one thing about getting any meshes that are generated or scanned. Sometimes there's all kinds of geometry issues sometimes with them, so you have to do a cleanup. So I'm going to do a cleanup here, so I can use this mesh. So I'm going to go to my mesh, cleanup. Where is it? Here. And let's see what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to just make it select, I want to see what's wrong with specific parts of the mesh before I go ahead and do anything with it. So let's see. There's no map, but there's no UVs on it, so I'm going to leave that, hit apply. And so here are the sections that it's having an issue with. And let's like zoom in, and you'll see this triangle here. It's just like, does not like that. So you can kind of see when you're, well, when you're really close up, or I can't get too close because of my clipping. I can change my clipping plane. Oops. I could get too close to it, but you can kind of see this mesh, right? The triangle right behind there is not happy about it. I kind of selected it. So it's that, and that's causing a problem. And there's a lot of those meshes. There's a lot of those, it seems, around here. So I just want to get a better look at this by doing this. So now it's double-sided. Oh, I lost the mesh. I lost the piece. I could try to do an automatic cleanup on that, but I think I'll just need to kind of see what is causing that issue. It's this triangle here. So if I delete that, see, and now I double check these to see how many. And so that was just a very weird triangle, and it looks like it has a few of those in this. And that's why usually I'll go to the remesher, but I'm going to try not to go to the instant meshes program now, just because that sometimes has problems on meshes that aren't cleaned up and will cause holes. So I'll do this and clean up kind of everywhere. Okay, so I finished cleaning the mesh here. There were some issues with kind of like merged verts behind the scenes. So what I did was I ran a cleanup in select mode, and it selected the problem areas. I went through and merged verts or cleaned verts where I needed to, and then filled holes. And there weren't really any holes, but there were just some verts that were merged on all sides, which across two different faces, which causes some non-manifold geometry. So now when I run a cleanup on it, it shouldn't select anything. Yeah, so it's all clean and ready to go. And from here, we can either do some of the commands like retopo or remesh or reduce in here, or you could take it to instant meshes, and then it should behave properly because now it's a clean mesh, and you should be able to get some really nice quadded geometry. So I'm going to take this and export it as an OBJ to this going to be my low poly version, but I'm going to take it into instant meshes and get some better topology instead of this kind of this triangle soup here, which is okay. You could probably take this and use it as which I'll take the original and use it as a high poly, but I want my low poly base to have a better better topology than what we would have if we just reduced this down. So, and I'm going to export it as an OBJ, export selection, and I'm going to call it my Corinthian cap high cleaned. So that means, so I'll know I cleaned it, and I'll just export that. I'll just overwrite the one I wrote, and I'll open up the OBJ. And yeah, that looks good. So let's see. I might say align to boundaries. We'll see. You can always, this is non-destructive, so you can always kind of redo this. So I'll solve the orientation field, and it'll draw kind of lines around the flow of the mesh. Kind of see like curves here. You can draw your own if you want to get really precise and say, okay, I really want this, to follow this edge here. But I'm going to just do this without doing all that, but you can get better results if you do that. So I will solve it, the position field, and you can kind of see it's, resolving how it should draw these new polygons across the mesh and giving you a preview. So then I'll go to the Export Mesh tab, and a couple things you can do here. If you want pure quads, that'll kind of make the polygon go up, or you could hit Extract Mesh, and here's the low poly version now. And there might be a few issues still left on this, so I'll take this into Maya and I will reduce it even further from there if I want. But now at least I have kind of a clean, gridded, quadded baseline to work with. So I would really love if the new kind of AI generated models ran some type of step like this after the high res version, so you could get really clean topology for game stuff. Or even if you're like an animator, you want your topology to be clean so you can paint weights and have your mesh deform in the proper ways. So I'll take this now and I will save this as my instant meshes version as an OBJ and bring that into Maya so I can kind of get the UVs done and get it prepped for Substance Painter. Okay, so this is a little lower poly here. A lot lower poly, about 117,000 triangles, which it's not bad. You could, some people might use this for something, but I'm going to take this and reduce it even further because I'm trying to get around to 10,000 or so. And I've noticed here there's kind of a hole here from instant meshes. Sometimes it does that when it just can't resolve some of the geometry. And what I'll do here is I'll fill it. Where's my fill hole here? And then I'll take this face and I could make it quads here, but what I will do, let's try the quads and see if that, quads isn't happy sometimes, so we'll do triangulate and see that will like fill that in and triangulate it properly so that there's no hole there anymore. So I can take this and start to reduce this down. I'm gonna get rid of those spots down there because I don't really need that down there, because I would make that column myself and it's just a cylinder. But you can kind of see this line here is a little jaggy. So okay, so let's take this. Let's call this our low. And then we need to UV this. Okay, this is getting a little long, so I'm going to pause this while I just finish up these UVs, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I finished the UVs on this capital, and I am ready to export a low poly and high poly version so I can use them in Substance Painter and create a texture for the material and the roughness maps and all that stuff. So here's the layout. I just did a simple layout, cut a seam down the middle, but since it's a skin, it doesn't really deform or anything. It should be fine. You can, take your time and do a really good job on the UVs to get, some really good results. And so let's see. So this is the low and this is the high, and I have a little script here that'll just export everything from the origin here and use the name I have here in the outliner. So I'm going to use Corinthian cap low and Corinthian cap high. So naming matters if you have a lot of parts and you want to use it in Substance Painter, so pieces don't overlap. You don't have to export everything as one large piece. You can do that. So I'm going to export this, or let's see the high. Actually, let's make a cage, because I've noticed when baking, like the best results I get are usually when I have a cage. You can kind of see they're hugging tightly there together. That looks good. So I'll use the low poly version here, and I can close this. I want to make let me delete my history also. I want to make a cage using the low poly that I can use in Substance Painter. So I'll duplicate this, Control D, and underscore cage is a suffix. And then I'll use this, I'll hide everything else. And what I'm going to do for this cage is I'm going to take all the verts and kind of balloon them out a little bit over, so they envelope over, the high res and low res, or the high res. And so I got my cage, and W is to transform, and then if I hold W down and then I select the axis I want to move it on, it's along the normals, and this will, first I have to be in where is it? Usually there's a little gizmo. Oh, sorry. Yeah, first I have to select all the verts of the cage. I'm gonna hide that for a second. The cage, select the verts. Axis normal. Oh, it's just really hard to see, but you can kind of see how there's a N there, and that's where you want to use your left mouse button, click and drag it along that normal, so you can, like this, you can balloon it out a little bit, and we'll see if that kind of fits over. You want it to fit over the mesh, high poly mesh, and you don't want all the stuff poking through, because that'll give you errors in your bake. So let's do that some more until it encompasses it completely. I think that's good. And so now let's export all these. So this is the cage, and I'll export that to a folder here. Exports, let's call, it'll call it whatever it's named here in the outliner. So that's the cage exported. And hide that and get the low poly out. And let's export the low poly, which is just Corinthian cap low. And then the high poly, which is Corinthian cap high here. That'll take a little time because it's a lot more geometry. And I believe those are being exported as FBX. Okay. So save all that. Now we're going to go into Substance Painter. Okay, I'm back, and here is Substance Painter. I forget what version this is. It's a really old version, or version 7.11. And I love this version because I paid for it once and I own it. And so I don't have to keep paying subscription fees to Adobe. And I just keep using this Substance Painter until I can't use it anymore. But so here we go. It is document size. I'm going to make a 4096 texture, PBR. This is all good. I'll select my low poly version, which is it's on my folder here. So this is the old version. Let's see its exports, and we're gonna get the low version. Okay. And it looks kind of lumpy. Don't worry about it. Like, once you break the normals to it, it'll be fine. So then we're going to go to my bake mesh maps section down here. Make this 4096, and then I'm going to find the high poly here, which is here. And I'm also going to use my cage file here. And then here's my cage file. And then I want this anti-aliasing. And see, this is where you can match like the mesh name, but since I only have two pieces, it's fine. If you had a group of objects that were all named like wheel underscore low, or door underscore low, you could, and then have the same kind of for the high, you could kind of match different parts of your FBX with these suffixes here. So I'm just going to say match everything because it's two pieces, and I feel like everyone should know this by now. So I'm not going to go too deep into how to bake this. I don't need an ID map because I didn't make one in the high poly. Or if my high poly was different colored materials, I could then select and say, oh, this is metal, this is gold leaf, this is concrete. But I don't need that, so I'm going to now bake, and hopefully this will bake really well. And let's bake our maps. Now it's baking the AO maps here. So far I don't see any issues. The cage seems to be working well. The curvature map looks okay. And here we go, hit OK. And so now here's kind of my baked version of the column capital. And this is, I think it's about 8,000 triangles, which is not bad. I was shooting for 10,000. So this is, I don't see any weird errors anywhere. So this is a good bake. And, I can check it out in different lighting scenarios. Let's take the blur off, and always like this glazed patio lighting a lot. So that's looking pretty good. Let's get some textures on it. First, let's save this because, you know, always need to save. You don't want to lose your work. And so that's looking good, but now what do we need? We need, you know, what it's made out of. And so let's start the texturing. Let's do something like this, but we're gonna get rid of the crackling part. Get rid of the peeling amount. Turn the normal on. I'm gonna make this tile twice. And so now I just want to accentuate some of the edges and the crevices, and so I'll start adding dirt. This is a kind of nice base already. I could go in and do some edge wear and all that stuff, but I'm going to keep this kind of clean because my reference, which you should definitely look at, is, you know, pretty clean. Fairy building's pretty new, so I'm going to add I'm going to start kind of building up my dirts on top of this layer, but I'm going to also, you'll see, I'll just start with my dirts. Make sure I'm searching all. And I will add a dirt occlusion here to just be, you know, get in the crevices. I like to kind of have my dirt unfolder up here called dirt. Very simple name. Let's see. Okay, let's add some of that. And my dirt, I made a smart dirt material here, which is really just a concrete without the normal, and it's kind of brown, and it just gets into all the crevices. And so I'll add it over here, and you'll start to see it kind of darken up crevices there. So it's not, you know, not crazy. It's just kind of some dust collects in there, and then, you know, I have some other dirts I could use, like kind of heavy dirt, or I have something that gets just the edges of stuff dirt. It's pretty subtle, but you start to get some slight edges. I'm gonna put that outside here. Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna put that back in here. Okay, and let's kind of add some dirt, more slight dirt modifier. And you can kind of start to see some of this pattern because I have a vertical kind of drip dirt pattern. And then what I kind of will do is add like a slight scuff and wear. I'll play with this wear pattern. Sometimes it depends on the material, but there's not a lot of kind of wear from kind of wear and tear, but it's more like a weathering that you get. So I'll add some of that. It's pretty slight, and it's kind of light, and it also plays with the roughness map. And then there's kind of some slight scuffs and scratches that I made here. And let's see, this might have to be, it might be tiled too much. Let's take it back down to 1 and see. We can kind of see some specks and some lines. It's very slight, but I kind of like it because it kind of just gives some kind of specks and dirt to I mean, you could also run like a dirt on there, like one of the materials, and some grunge if you want some actual grunge on there. But I don't want this to be too grungy. And you could also add like a positional dirt where it kind of gets dirtier the lower it gets down. That's kind of cool when you have like a bigger object. But what I'm going to do to kind of accentuate this a little more is something pretty simple where I like to take it's like in Photoshop, if you ever stroke something, it's like an outline on the highlight. We did this when we were back in the day for game development textures, when you kind of wanted them to pop slightly. It's not totally physically accurate, but it kind of can separate some of the parts and highlight some of the parts. And then if you make it really slight, it kind of works well. So I'll look up my stroke, and it's just a white color that I've made a smart material of down here that looks for the curve map and the edges, and will give a slight pop to the edges. You'll see it in a second. Maybe it's very subtle, but I can turn it off, on and off, but you can kind of see it here. And you can make that wider and lighter. And I'll usually turn it down because I don't want it to be too outlined, because then it kind of looks like a cartoon. So I'll just turn this down a little bit. And I'm kind of liking that. I mean, this material isn't really that detailed. I mean, you could start adding some really cool weather patterns on there and some grime on there. Like some kind of dark dirts and grimes. Let's see if we get some of our dirts. I mean, you could add some like cool drips, and I might add just something that's a little bit more contrasty to come out a little bit. I don't want it, because I'm going to be repeating these a lot, so I don't want there to be very specific wear or weathering on it that each one will have. I can always rotate them also and get kind of 4 faces that are different. But let's go for a dirt here in the... We're going to modify a smart material here. And let's see if this works. We'll take this dirt, which is like insanely dirty. It's like way too dirty. We can go to the mask editor here and definitely... And I don't like that it's using this normal, which it's like I don't want the normal map of the dirt to come through, or the height map of the dirt to come through. I kind of just want it to be like it's laid on there. It's not like mud splattered, like thick mud splattered on there. Let us take that down a bit. It's not too bad. Here, let's go back to this mask editor. I take this down. I just want a little bit, really. I don't want it too spotted. But I do want to, I'm going to duplicate this really quick and call this kind of more drips. And I'm going to use an image from the Grimes or grunges. Let's look for something droopy. Actually, let's look at this really quick and see. It's a little too much. I need something more directional. Oh, no, not that. Where is a good directional? These are kind of good, and they're not kind of subtle enough that can make the contrast pop on them. Oh no, what? Too much contrast. Some dirt in there. I might. Now, there's a lot of cool stuff you could do with this. Instead of it being kind of this limestone, you could make it like bronze or something. And so, like, I might test out a few looks. Like this is this look that I have for a more kind of clean, more clean look. But if I want something like, I have some smart materials that I made that are like bronze or statue stuff. So let's see how those look. We can just test those. I have this statue bronze here. I don't know which one is, oh, that's worn dark, and this is triplanar. Let's try this statue bronze one. If you ever needed a bronze capital. And it's, you know, it's not bad. You have to work with this to get it to, you know, look right. Like, let's see, statue. I have some old statues that I made when I was making an old statue pack, and I made a smart material for a kind of clean statue, a dirty statue, and a gold statue. Well, let's see the gold leaf statue. If this was gold leaf, what would it look like? Yeah, there you go. So you could kind of have parts of this gold leaf and then mask it out for the parts if you wanted something very gold, but I'm not a huge fan of gold, so I'll delete that. Let's try this dirty statue look. And this is a smart material I made when I was making a statue pack. And let's look at this and see what it looks like. Oh, so this is like a really old, worn statue that's been like in a garden, you know, like kind of slightly has all this like kind of moss on it, and it's like it's kind of moldy. So, you know, you could kind of see, you could mask that out too and get parts that aren't, so it isn't so even. But so let's just go with this kind of initial texture here. And I think there's, yeah, I had some kind of normal under there that kind of makes it worn. So, but I'll delete that. And so here's kind of what we're going to go for. So we'll export this texture after we save it real quick. Okay, go to File, Export, Textures, and let's just export this to the same folder, I'll make like a textures directory in here. Well, I'll say exports, and then I'll make a textures in the exports folder here. Textures, and then select my folder, and I'll make this, say it's 4K, but I want this to be my setting here of MRAO, which is really, I just made a preset that's the red channel is metal, green channel is roughness, and blue channel is AO. And I can export the height map out and emissive and alpha. I'll just do the simple MRAO here and save this, but make sure you kind of name, you want to name your standard surface here. I'll just name this Corinthian column or cap. And I have it so it automatically put a T underscore, which is the naming convention for Unreal. And then I will export that out to this drive as a 4096, and then successful, open up, and here are my my textures here. It's not bad. Okay, so here we are in Unreal. This is Unreal Engine 5.6, and I have my ferry building in here, and this is kind of the final model using HISMs and a lot of instancing. And because I wanted to save some polygons, I made each of these instances of, this is the old column pillar top there, the column cap. I made that. That one's about 7,000 triangles, but each one's an instance, so you're only paying once for them, so I can have them, all across the top of the building like that, and they are, I'm only paying for one. So let's bring in the capital that we just made into Unreal here, and I'll bring it into this file, like all, this isn't kind of, I don't need it in this file, but just so we can compare and contrast and see the workflow of getting the asset that was just made in. I'll put it in my meshes tab here, and don't mind all these other meshes. I'll make a little folder for it here, so I can kind of remember where it is. Make a little folder, call this Corinthian cap. And then right click, import to current folder, importing a static mesh, and I'll go find my actual tutorial folder here. And I'll bring in the low poly version. Usually I would name this whatever I was going to name it, so it comes in with the right name. And also, depending on what you name the material in Maya, if it's named as the same material as something that's already in your scene, it'll automatically apply it to the FBX when it comes in. So I'm going to kind of leave all this at default. If you want to do things like you want vertex color, you want LODs and whatnot, I'm gonna let's just give it. Well, I mean, let's give it a small prop LOD group. And then we will, I don't really want to bring in the materials or textures because there's none on it, and I don't want it to make new ones. So let us find it. Oh wait. Here it is. Oh, I know. I probably also should have looked to see at what scale it was it was coming in at. Usually I'll have a mannequin in there and bring it in at the right scale. So let's, leave that open for now and save that because the model's in. I think it's really, really tiny. Let's bring it into the scene really quick. It's probably really tiny. Yeah, so usually I would just scale that up properly instead of in here. I'm probably going to scale that up 1,000. Not 1,000, let's do 100 each way. Oh wow, not 100, maybe. Oh, that's okay. Let's just go back to 1 here. There we go. And let's lock this so they're all, it's an equal scale on all of them. Yeah, let's say 100's fine. Okay, let's, I'll just put this material, usually I'll put it in the material folder. We can do that. I'll put it in my materials folder. I'll make a folder in here. Corinthian cap. No cap. Okay, so let's get our textures. And we're going to import our textures that we made from Substance into here. And they're right here. Bring them all in. That's great. It lets you know it came in as a normal map. But what you're going to need before you make this material is to take your roughness and MRAO packed map, and because it's using each map as a RG, there's my AO, this is my roughness, and this is my metal. It's no metal, so it's black. And when you have them all together on top of each other, they look like that. And a lot of people use ORM. I just got used to using MRAO, or but you can go ORM if you want, which is occlusion would be in the red channel, and then roughness and then metallic would be in the blue channel. So but what you want to do is you want to uncheck this sRGB when you're using these channels that are individual grayscale maps packed together. And we'll save that. And then I'll make the material. And I will use a material that I have. I'll just duplicate one I made for the ferry building. So do I have a ferry building one in here? I think in my remastered section, I have the ferry materials here. Yeah, here, we'll duplicate this ferry material, which we'll just make another instance, and Control D here to duplicate, and I'll just call this Corinthian cap. You can be more descriptive, call it limestone or whatever, and then a number usually if you want a variation. So hey, where did I go? Oh, because I'm so let's look up Corinthian. I was filtering out everything and only showing stuff that had the word ferry in it. And so here's that material, but we're going to use the materials from, that's so big here. Okay, so let's look up everything in the textures folder and just look up my cap textures. Oh, wait, it's my Corinthian. I know I made. Okay, T underscore Corinthian. I'm going to use the textures here and apply them to the MRAO channel or ORM channel if you want, and my normal map here. And here's the texture or in the material. Save that, and now I can apply that to. Well, let's apply it in the static mesh here. Save that. And I also have I have this real-time performance turned off because my 3090, I have a 3090, and it, it's getting kind of old, but it loves, the fan loves to come on and just go crazy once I'm in this viewport. So I usually keep this real-time viewport turned off, just so it doesn't tax the GPU and my card starts to overheat. So I can turn it on for one, and we can look at this kind of what we have here. So here's the column capital in Unreal here, and you can kind of see it next to these the version 1, I guess, that I made back here. And that's kind of a simple way to get your meshes in using Hitem3D, and using an image to make a real-time game 3D mesh. And so it's really useful and really fast for generating these very complicated, complex, like decorative architectural pieces. So I highly recommend using it to do anything that's like very decorative like this, or would take a long time to build, especially for the high res. I mean, there's some cleanup that you might need, but I assume in the future that will be kind of taken care of, so you could export very clean meshes. And even I think in the future I could easily see companies adding that step in there, where it gives you a nice quadded clean mesh to work from, so it's not the triangle soup. So yeah, so thanks for watching this far, and I hope you've learned some things. I'm gonna go back to the the Hitem3D page and see if I can make some more cool models. I'm really curious about that Akira bike, like how what it will do. So if you stay tuned, I'll do that really quickly. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it and learned something. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for some more picture to 3D or image to 3D generation. Thanks. Okay, here we are back in Hitem3D, and let's see, let's try another image here. So I want to let me find my reference images here, and here's my images. Here's another column here with a capital. That's sometimes you want to make these from a get a perspective that's more kind of in line with what the object would really be like. You can tell this picture was taken from a lower angle, so that I think probably could impact the generation, because that's what it sees and it has to kind of take that and figure out the proportions. So this from the side would probably be kind of better if you wanted a more accurate to side profile shot. But we're gonna try this, this bike, and this is a very iconic bike. Everyone knows this if they've seen Akira, but I'm really curious. I have two, one with kind of a cleaner background, one from kind of like a comic book, like with some kind of stenciling in there. So we're going to try this and see what it does. And then there's another kind of clean. Oh, this is transparent, but I'll try this one with the white background here and see what it makes. Let's see. Well, I wonder if I should should I put a texture on this one? I won't put a texture on this one just because however this is painted is a little strange. So let's see. Let's just do it without the, oh, that's on. Let's do it without the texture. And I only have one view, so we'll generate this one. Okay, so the bike is finished, and impressive results for one angle, one shot, one image. Although, as you can see, the windshield, the transparent windshield in the image was always going to be a challenge for something like this to resolve. So it kind of did what it could. It kind of got that highlight that was, it looked, you can see the sheen off of it. So it kind of picked that up actually pretty well. But it couldn't capture the transparent parts because they're transparent. So that's going to be a challenge, I think, for any kind of algorithm based off of images to know whether or not, oh, that's glass and it's see-through, or is it just I could see the objects underneath it. It resolved the objects underneath pretty well. Didn't do the handlebars, I don't think, because it couldn't probably figure out through the through this glass canopy. But it's impressive for what it is. It's the edging is, the edge work here is it's well done. It's better than I've seen in other programs. But I just wanted to see what this would do, and it's actually really, really cool and really promising for this just to be version 1.5. So I'm going to try one more, which is I'm going to try the other Corinthian column capital that I wanted to try and see kind of what result that gets. This is from a generated image from I've used AI service and just typed in, oh, I want a Corinthian column, and this is what it gave me. So I want to see what it generates from that. And I will generate this one with the texture just to see how it will do. And let's generate. Okay, we're back, and it finished at 22 minutes, 36 seconds. The progress bar is kind of interesting because it only took 8 minutes to get to 99%, but then at 99%, it stayed there for until 22 minutes. So, I mean, it'd be nice if that was more accurate. So you weren't thinking like, oh, 99% done. I think I'll stick around. But anyway, the results are really, really impressive here. Like, I think maybe also it took longer from the first time because I didn't generate a texture the first time, even though there's not much to this texture. It's just kind of this weird, like, looks like kind of wood or something. So let's kind of look at it without the texture. But that's really great. Like that, look at those lines. I'm really impressed with how clean it is. And this version 1.5 closed the top, kept the top and the bottom, which is great. And man, look at these arches here. That's great. So Yeah, well, I should have done the tutorial on this one. This one's really cool. Like, I think the shapes are kind of more well defined. Look at that sphere, actually. That's really impressive. So, yeah, I mean, my takeaway from using Hitem3D is I'm definitely going to be using it in my, workflow in the future. I mean, this stuff is pretty new, right? I think last month is when I heard about this, and I just happened to be needing to make these Corinthian columns, and it worked out so well. Like, I didn't have to model it. I just had to, reduce it, clean it up, make sure it was at the poly count that I wanted it at, and then I was done. I mean, it would take me, I would say, at least probably half a day to a day to actually do the high poly for this, just because it's, luckily this thing is symmetrical, so you could kind of get one of these leaves here and rotate it around. But I'm just really impressed with how well this generates 3D high-res, high-quality images based on one photo alone. That's great. Like, how did it know that there was only kind of one of these peaks back here and not, two or something? Or I just like the decisions it made. But yeah, I'd definitely be using this. And I mean, you can think about all the really cool things you can make with this. You can make statues. You can make a whole collection of ornate 3D kind of decorations that you could use in other programs, or you could use to, make height maps for other things, like all these really cool motifs that are on these Baroque buildings. And I just think about all the really cool and decorative kind of architectural pieces that I would use this for. And even more things, like a lot of organic stuff, it'd be great because, and then hard surface stuff too. I mean, I would really like to see a step where it makes sure all the, polys are clean and laid out in these quads that are just really useful for game development or for animation and stuff. But this is really impressive. Like, look at that. That's great. I'm definitely going to be using this, especially for features like these on buildings in the future, and starting now. So yeah, I'm glad. I hope you kind of watched this whole thing and kind of saw my workflow through going from image to high-res 3D to game-ready asset. And thank you for watching. And yeah, this is really awesome. I definitely recommend giving it a try. Thanks. Bye.
Well, that about wraps up this video on how professional artists like Tav are utilizing image to 3D generation tools to create extremely realistic environment pieces to create vast environments for AAA game production in Unreal Engine. We hope these insights were informative on some of the tools being used by professionals, and although what is generated still needs to be cleaned up to integrate into game projects, there are some great use cases where these tools can allow artists to create environments that might even be beyond their capabilities or scope, as we saw with Tav's fairy building story. A bit of a backstory on how this project came to be with Hitem3D was they reached out to us, and we get a ton of AI companies wanting to sponsor us that we typically are not interested in. But we noticed that they were highlighting Tav's use of their tools for his projects even before they contacted us. And so we thought it would be an interesting opportunity to show how one of our instructors has been using these new tools to get to the finish line faster versus doing everything manually, especially when recreating a photoreal asset where the objects need to be extremely detailed and as close to one-to-one as possible. So for this video, Hitem3D gave us early access to their 1.5 release, and with this update, it introduces 1536 Pro resolution, so the results will be a lot more detailed. You also have the option for 3 free retries. And if you want to generate draft assets, the 512 resolution is perfect for quick testing. These tools are becoming extremely powerful, and we wanted to show a realistic workflow where artists' human touch is still necessary to implement these assets into a game production environment. We think this very well could be the way of the future, with AI tools being used in studios to meet required quick deadlines, and especially in game development or for small indie projects with small teams. We also want to thank Tav Shande for collaborating with us on these detailed insights, And also be sure to watch our channel as well as Tav's channel on future technical 3D environment asset creation workflows. Are you using similar 3D environment asset workflows for your personal projects or as a working professional at your studio? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
Perfect.